Hello, and welcome to the Blitheway Business News. Today, we're joined by Mike Oxley, CEO of Brazilian Nickel. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Megan. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. So it's been a pretty busy year for you guys, and you've achieved a lot. Can you give us the highlights of the year, please?
Sure. It has been a very busy year, and a lot has been done. I think, one of the main highlights really is the work that we did on the P&P 1000, as we call it. That's taking the demonstration plants that we ran at the site in POE in 2017, 2018. And that generated a lot of data for the bankable feasibility study. But we looked at this and said, well, can we turn this into a continuously operating unit? And the team came up with a plan, which we started implementing back in November, December of 2020. But it really kicked off throughout the course of this year. So a lot of work was done on earthworks, preparation for the pads, the ponds, etc., which are now all done. And they've started working on the downstream precipitation plant. And the good thing about the P&P 1000 is that it does everything that we're planning for the full scale of the project, but just a bit smaller. So we're producing 1,400 tons a year of nickel from May, as opposed to 25,000 tons a year in the full scale plan. And it gets the product out there, it gets interest from potential customers and even potentially financial support from such customers. And it also gets ourselves a workforce that's trained and in place. And so basically, as we're raising funds on the back of the bankable feasibility study that we're of course doing as well in parallel, well, we can say to people, look, here's what we're doing. And the full scale project really is an expansion of this. We'll be doing it a bit bigger and we'll be doing it over there in a different location, but still very much next to the deposit. So there was a lot of good milestones throughout the year. We got all of the permits in place to operate the P&P 1000. We've developed the whole team to implement that. And as construction begins to wind down over the course of the next few months, we have an operational team that's been recruited and is being trained to take it on. So yes, so it's been very exciting. And of course, the guys at site have done very, very well with all the difficulties that we've had around the world with limited travel, but also price inflation for things like steel, where they've still been able to manage to keep us more or less on budget and more or less on time. So, that's been great. And then I mentioned the BFS. We have a bankable feasibility study that we will complete in the first quarter of next year for the full scale. And a lot of good work has been done on that, and that's now being pulled together. And I suppose the other highlight for me is that we have made progress on finding ourselves a second and even a third project to bring forward. Again, using the heat leaching technology again on nickel laterites, and again in Brazil, which is great. And it means that we've got a team that's now been through a bankable feasibility study that can move on and start looking at the development, either ourselves or in joint venture with other things in Brazil. So it's been a very good year, and I'm expecting a very good 22 as well.
Good. I'm glad it's been successful. You also partnered with Paradigm for Parity. How does this fit in with your own goals within the company, and what's your objective with the alliance? Well,
our target is to have parity in senior management in terms of gender by 2030. So that's only 9 years away. It's a challenging target, but we wanted to go with somebody that could help us. Paradigm for Parity, an interesting group. They're not particularly mining focused. They're a North American group, and that, in a sense, gives us a different take on things rather than the UK European that we might have. And they provide various different toolboxes and things like that one can use. And it helps focus us on that target. And I think we've done quite well already since we started looking at this year. For instance, we had a vacancy as the camp manager that we needed to replace. And instead of replacing that person with one person, we were actually able to promote 3 people from the company to actually divide that job, but move to a more senior position. And these are people that we've recruited locally in the project area. And for me, that was very pleasing. And we've also been able to bring in and attract and retain female employees in some of the support functions, as well as 1 or 2 operators So we have an electrician lady that's working at the site, again from the local area. So it's helping us identify the right targets, looking at the ways of doing it, making ourselves attractive as a company to a diverse set of employees, and then starting to implement. And we're already seeing some success. So hopefully, we will get ourselves there at the senior management level within that time frame.
Great, thank you. And can you just tell us about your long-term vision for Brazilian Nickel?
Yeah, we've been looking at what we can do to contribute to fighting climate change, and in particular, looking at our CO2 emissions, both within the process and then further out in the chain as we sell our products through to potentially electric vehicles. So there's been some interesting moves on this. We've started working with a couple of universities on what we can do to change our CO2 footprint. And these programs have started to show some interesting results, because really our vision has to be to go beyond carbon neutrality, but even to get to ourselves to carbon negativity. Why aspire to a smaller target when there's a bigger target to get to? So really the vision is to be able to produce an awful lot of nickel and cobalt. We'd like to try and be the largest producer within Brazil, but to do it in a way that is carbon negative throughout our supply chain. And if we aim for that, even if we never quite make it, we will make a serious contribution and a serious difference to supplying really just two of the elements that the world is going to need, but doing it in a sustainable and low carbon way. So that's really is what driving us forward over the next few years.
Great, thanks. Well, as well as a busy year, it sounds like you've got a very busy year next year as well. So we look forward to hearing from you a bit more. We
certainly do. And yes, I'll be glad to talk again and share our adventures with you later on in the year.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike.
Cheers. Bye-bye.